Today we're going to continue on with the Kihon series, zeroing in on the fine detail of the Kihon. Everyone in Kyokushin does the Kihon, and by Kihon I'm referring to the 30 main basic Kihon techniques. Okay, but at the same time, as we always say, that Kihon is everything that you do that isn't the actual event. So you have to treat all your training with that approach, that everything you do is developing a foundation and developing a broad base use of the skills. Of course, the skills you use are determined by the environment you're using them in. For example, the techniques that are allowed in tournaments represent, according to Soul Size books, represent less than 1/3 of the techniques that Soul Size taught within Kyokushin. So if you're training for tournaments, then the techniques you use become very tournament specific, which means you rarely see the back fists and the knife hands and so on. But just before we came on, we were having a look at a self-defense video done by Oishi Daigo Hanshi, the famous kicker from the First World Tournament. And he's doing all elbows, koken, palm heels, things
shote
like that, shote into the face, and even kokens into the face, that sort of thing. Koken being the wrist like that. So we have to recognize that there's a whole range of techniques that are applicable in a real world situation that just aren't practical in a tournament. Now, having said that, today we're going to look at the blocks. The blocks, as in Japanese, Uke Waza. Okay. Uke actually means, ukeru, the verb ukeru means to receive. So I understand why we would say that the techniques are blocks, but it's also a little misleading, because it doesn't become a block. It simply becomes a way to receive a certain type of blow. You know, they throw the punch. I don't want to think that it's this sort of block. What it is, it's just the way you receive it that makes all the difference. The techniques, the blocking techniques, have different applications even within themselves, depending on the range. Range 1, the kicks, the Gedan Barai is more like this. That's the old school way. If you look at Sosai's old books, Gedan Barai was practiced like that. Sosai taught 3 different Gedan Barai.
Right.
We tend to do the one here because it conforms within the body of blocking basics, but also it has multiple applications as well. But when you're talking about range 1, well, then obviously the way you do the Gedan Barai, whether it's a roundhouse kick or a Maegiri, is very different. Range 2, obviously, the techniques that you use in a live situation. Remember, nothing counts unless you pressure test it against a non-compliant opponent whose objective is to hurt you. Okay, so this is why it's really important that you take the techniques a little step further. You notice we're in t-shirts. We deliberately wore t-shirts simply because by doing the blocks with the gi on, sometimes you can't quite see the arm motion perfectly. So what we're doing is by wearing t-shirts, you can see the angles of the arm and so on much better. First of all, I'd just like to also mention the passing of Hanshi John Taylor. Hanshi John Taylor, I was the interpreter at the meeting in 1977 when Australia selected Hanshi John Taylor as the country representative. And he remained a force of development within Kyokushin all these years. He was one of the founders and heads of the Matsushima group after Sosai passed away. So I just like to mention my commiserations and send message of love to his family, and may he rest in peace. Indeed, he was also one of the pioneers of the early Australian karate in general, not just Kyokushin, but in the old days, the Federation of Australian Karate Organizations. He was a founding member of that as well. So we see another one of the Kyokushin greats passing.
Of course.
It happens.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, let's go right into, I'm going to go straight into the basics. When we do the Kihon, we do them in a particular order. I want to go through just the blocks today, but with some key detail. Okay, we start off from here. We're looking at Jodan Uke. A couple of things to remember. One, the hand doesn't move off the line. This sort of thing is incorrect. Okay, in reality, whatever you do that works is correct. Like Salsai says, there's only one way to do a technique correctly, but if the way you do it knocks them out, that's the right way. Well, it's the same with a block. If we practice the block exactly right, but under pressure, the hand moves across like that, and it works, boy, oh boy, is that the right way to do it? Definitely. Okay, let's look at a few fundamentals. First, the shoulder wedges. So the arm is 45. So if I look from the side, I have 45 in the shoulder, 45 in the arm. So it wedges up like that. But I don't want to get it and wedge out like that in the movement. The first thing to remember is it's not square, of course, we know that. Okay, and this upper movement is less of the block than the takeaway. The reality is, if I'm in this situation here and a punch comes towards me, it's very hard to get underneath. If it's a grab, it's a different situation. But against a punch, generally speaking, you're going to pat the punch down here. So there's your block. There's your block, and there's your takeaway. So as Mitch throws that punch, boom, there's my block, there's the takeaway. So if I'm here and I try to block it with an up block, I personally think it's way too slow, especially if he's just like, he's snapping a jab out at me really fast, boom, just real fast, boom, just snapping it out. There's no way that this block is going to be very useful. But on the other hand, as he snaps it, boom, that sort of thing is practical. And then I can use the upper block to jam to get inside the range, okay? The safest place to be, like the old saying, 1 foot in front of the blade or 1 foot in front of the fist, I'm in hell, but 2 foot forward and I'm back in heaven again. So we have that as well. Okay, so remember that it's not always this motion that is the block. The reality is that can be the block as well. And in training, when you teach your class, it's good to practice both. Block down there, one. Then notice my shoulder is still in front. I don't want to bring it here and go to here. It's not going to work. I keep that shoulder forward, drop it down, bring this hand across and meet the elbow, and look at my arm now. See, this hand is in line with this shoulder. So now, as I raise up, you see that line. You see that wall. Where are we? That line up the wall. See that? I'm going to use that to show you what I mean. One down. See, the hand comes across. Now, notice my hand goes straight up that line. At no point do I bring my hand out. At no point does this hand change line. What it does is it follows a vertical line all the way up. Drop it down. Cross it to the center line. I use the contraction of my chest. And look, this hand now goes straight up in a straight line as I unwind my shoulders. I'm turning my head a little bit just so you can see my face when I talk. Okay, 1, 2. Now this hand will follow that line. 3. 1, 2, 3. 1. There's my block. Bang. And it also works against, for example, a grab. He grabs. Boom. I drop it down there, back fist. Or, there like that. I can pat it ready for an arm drag. There, look. Boom. Drop it down and go into an arm drag. Sometimes they post on your head. Boom. Just like that. Now I'm going to use the upper movement. Here, drag the arm and finish. We'll post with that one so you can see. Boom. See that? I'm going to take it down. There, and drag. Okay, so it has that practical application of moving from range, it's almost range 3 into range 4 to get the inside control on the grapple. So arm is up. It's about that angle. So also used to say that's the distance from your forehead there. drop the elbow vertically, bring the hand across, and then as I withdraw the hikite, this hand slides up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then you put it together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, like that. So you get this movement where you drop down strongly. This hand doesn't come out. It follows a vertical line straight up like that. So that's Jodan Uke. Okay? Chudan Soto Uke is probably the most commonly used technique in tournaments, simply because as you're fighting, you're using this movement across the body there like that all the time. Boom. Even when they throw like a back kick there, see that movement there. If you jam a back kick well, I'm in this position. See there? I bury my elbow into the ribs and then I catch it there. Of course, if they're super flexible and they spin around, I want to make sure I move in. But that blocking motion is very, very common in tournament fighting. Bang, 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 this sort of thing. Okay? The reality is I want to use this hand across the body and pull. Notice I finish in line with the opposite side of my body. My wrist is shoulder height, once again. The angle here is not too short. It's not exactly 90 degrees because there's not as much strength in that as there is if the hand is slightly out. Okay, so I'm here, it's across my body. I withdraw, notice my elbow is straight behind as far as I don't want to do this. Bring it to the side. This is very common. You see guys doing this, like this. You want to get the full retraction. So from in front, you can't even see my elbow anymore. Then I retract the hikite and I bring this hand around horizontally. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. All the way to here. I hide my neck and my chin behind the shoulder. Okay, it's a little bit like if the punch comes in, boom, it's a peekaboo style. Here like this. Okay, I'm doing that same motion. There, and then coming back. Not that I'd use it in that circumstance, but that's the idea there. So when I do this technique, I'm hiding my hand, my chin behind my shoulder. See that? There. 1, all the way across here, elbow behind, around horizontally. 2, and I finish in line with my opposite shoulder. My wrist, shoulder height. 1, 2, 1, 2. That's very practical too when you enter into range 4 and you really want to cause a bit of havoc. When the punch comes, boom, I'm going to go here. Well, I do that there in that circumstance. If the other punch comes, boom, watch this. Exact same movement there. But look what happens. And either if I don't dislocate the shoulder or the elbow, I definitely tweak it. That movement there. Boom. So the hikite, as Itosu Anko said, as Miyagi Chojun said, the retracting hand has something in it. Okay, retracting hand has something in it. In this circumstance, when the punch comes, boom, look, retracting hand has something in it. So I've done that Soto Uke movement, but my retracting hand has his wrist in it, so I tweak the shoulder there. Okay, so that's another practical way to look at that retracting hand. Next one, Uchi Uke. Now here's the interesting thing. One day when I had very little to do and too much time on my hands, that's where all my best research is done in those moments. I took all the kata of Kyokushin and I counted all the techniques to see which techniques. And obviously, if you're looking at kata, the technique that is most common would arguably be the one that is seen as most important. Okay, what you do most commonly is arguably the most important thing to you. The number one most common technique in all the Kyokushin kata is Chudanski. Okay, and you can check this for yourself. And if you do go through all the kata and check them and come up with a different result, I'd be very interested to hear about it. The number 2 technique is Uchi Uke. And that's interesting because very rarely do you see Uchi Uke happen in tournaments. But here's the clincher. It's very common in a self-defense situation, okay? Because the Uchi Uke is set up from a two-hand motion. Look, even in Tensho Kata, 1, 2, 3. See that movement here? That movement is a form of Uchi Uke. The movement when you're in this situation and they push you, boom. See that Uchi Uke movement right there? I'm going to take that away. He pushes me, boom, yeah. Uchi Uke, right there to take the energy off. There's my Uchi Uke, leading straight into an arm drag. You can also argue that just for the sake of argument, I'm getting to put his hand on my shoulder, you can also argue that you can use Soto Uke there, like that. The thing about Soto Uke, and this is unless you get the grip, it leads to very little, okay? But Uchi Uke leads to a lot more. So when I come here like this, look, that situation, Uchi Uke, roll to there. So as he pushes now, there, that movement is very strong. We practice that for hours. There, boom. That sort of movement. I know what we're doing is not realistic, but the reality is, you're tough guy. Yeah, they push you like that all the time. Bang! You can get that movement really fast. You can actually enter into what Jean LaBelle calls the dark side of the moon. When they push the boom, bang, look, here, I'm right behind. Immediately you go cross face or choke or just take them down to the ground. But that all is initiated from the Uchi Uke and the drag. Okay, so Uchi Uke, even though you don't see it very commonly in tournaments, remember tournaments like the tip of the iceberg. 90% of that iceberg is underneath. But we all see the tip. So we look at Kyokushin, we see the tournaments, and we think that's the iceberg. But the reality is underneath the water is this monstrous body of practical, usable techniques which you don't see rise above the surface of a tournament. Okay, Uchi Uke, right here. I'm in here. Now watch. As I roll my body, that hand becomes a turn. So now my elbows are touching. And then I unwind. Roll my body, crunch my shoulders together with a tight contraction, and then unwind. See that? Roll. My hand stays right on the midline. As I roll my shoulders from that shoulder forward, look, the other shoulder comes forward and unwinds. This is why I wore a t-shirt, so you can actually see these angles a lot better. Unwind. And then from there, undo. Unwind, undo. Against the punch, this is the situation. One. There's the Uchi Uke. There. Okay. I know we did the grab. We did the grab as the Uchi Uke there. But against the punch, there's the Uchi Uke as well. So I'm going to become a two-hand motion. The reality is one of the best self-defense approaches you can take. If you can't enter in safely to range 4 and get your head here with a headbutt, or on the chest up with a headbutt, or then from the side there getting control with a single leg, then the reality is you want to be able to get to the outside. And another valuable thing is this double hand motion. So I'm here like that. I don't know what's coming. I just get this double hand motion coming, and then boom, drive in towards them with two hands. I don't know. I want trouble. Boom, both hands come up. In this situation, he can hit with that, he can hit with that, he can be around, he can be there. He can do a lot of things. Okay, I'm in this. I don't want trouble, sir. And then boom, I want to take both hands up, and then from there, that's when you can start. You have a split second to react. I don't want trouble. Boom, boom, comes up. It doesn't matter what they do. That movement will pick it up. You see that? There, boom. That'll pick it up from here. Boom, shoulder, 2-on-1, drag. Okay, from that situation, take down. The point is that initial explosion is very difficult to detect. I don't know what he's doing. Generally, we talk about, 70% of the street fights, they all end up with the right haymaker. So we all practice the right haymaker. And then you get a smart street fighter, fakes the right haymaker and hits you with a left hook, so you've been suckered. Okay, but that movement there the kung fu movement. We go like this, but the hidden motion is that coming up here. That's the gokui, the hidden movement behind it. So we're here like this. Oh, boom, there's your motion. You come in, boom. And then that's when you can start to close the gap and use those techniques.
Sure, I remember Sensei Peter Collis talking about that too in his bouncing days. He said to me not long ago about that double-handed movement. When everything's coming, it's just that. He said he used it a lot.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
The number of times when you don't know. And even in a situation where they're just flailing in on you, that sort of motion, you come up, boom, and you're kind of doing Elvis Party's hair, this sort of thing, and you're working your way. Let's come back here so you can see. I'm in this situation, double hands come up, boom, boom, and I work my way to hit my head inside on the chest. Now, if I can control this hand, it's very difficult for him to hit me now. Okay? And what you can do is you can even bring this arm around and hook inside. Now I have good control of that arm. Okay? If I bring this one there, you can take him down. We're kind of digressing, but the point is this Uchi Uke is the opening move to so many. That's why you'll see it so often in kata, because it's a really great way to finish off against the punch or the grab. Oh, see, I come up there and look, finish there, come to the outside, go to his back, that sort of thing. Okay, so Uchi Uke, once again, shoulder height, slightly greater than 90, definitely not back here, slightly more than 90 degrees, hand retracted. Turn, elbows together, and unwind. Turn, unwind. Unlike Jodan Uke, where the shoulders turn as the block comes. Uchi Uke, you actually turn the shoulders before the block. Okay? There. Okay? Gedan Barai, similar thing. 3 ways to do Gedan Barai. First is the double-handed block, up, down, up, down. That's very practical because of what we just talked about. The hands coming up here and blocking down against the roundhouse kick, against the punches like that. The other way to look at it too is the elbows coming together here. Okay, so if you say to someone, you go to training and say to someone, throw a punch, generally go, well, what do you want? You want a right cross to the face or left this? Or even you watch demos. Guys go, well, look, this is the best block in the world and block anything. Throw a right straight at me. They won't block anything. You never see in demos they go, just come in and try and nail me with something. It just doesn't happen.
What interested me, Shihan, on that train of thought, just before when we were doing it, you didn't know what I was going to throw when you were doing the double technique before. I was just throwing whatever. Yes. It wasn't planned.
No, we planned it. We set it up before. Yeah. So the reality is you're not 100% certain of what goes on. So with the Gedan Barai too, the beauty of it is most people don't bring the elbows together here. The Gedan Barai and the Uchi Uke Gedan Barai are virtually the same. Look at Uchi Uke. There, look. Elbows come together. Elbows come together. Gedan Barai. Elbows come together. Elbows come together. So this movement here will cover a lot of things. It's like a peekaboo once again. He throws a punch. Boom. Look. As long as I bring my elbows together, you'll pick it up whether it's middle or whether it's upper or even if it's lower. Boom. There like that. That elbows together. But if I don't bring my elbows together, I'll wear it. Even if it's a head punch and I don't bring my elbows together, I don't cover the center line. But by bringing my elbows together, I'm able to pick it up. Now, what happens next is as the punch comes, boom, there's the punch to the head. Now I can finish by taking it away with an upper block. If it's a middle punch, boom, there like that, I can take it away with an Uchi Uke. If it's a lower punch, boom, I can take it away with a Gedan Barai. So the key principle to good Kihon blocks is getting the elbows together. There, look, one. Across the body, there, cross. I used to say it's like you're ripping your ear off and taking it down. Elbows together. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's another way to do the Gedan Barai. The third way is the circular way. Big circle around like that, which also we used to use quite often. It works well, for example, If he grabs or something like that, boom, see that circular motion, or he pushes me. See, I push the shoulder away. Sometimes in grappling, they'll post on your head, boom, to get distance. Yeah, they'll post on the head to get distance. And they want you to come up and get the hand because that leads into a good collar tie or something like that. Okay? So when they post on the head, if you just knock it away with a Gedan Barai, it allows you to recover well too. I like to, when I knock it away with a Gedan, I hang on. But you see, if their thought is they're going to post on your head, you knock it away, and that leads into them getting the collar tie. Okay, really good combination. So here's what you need to do, is as I post on it with the Gedan Barai, I'm going to push it across that way. So now he tries to get the collar tie. It's really hard. And I'm going to keep circling around there like that. Okay, so that idea, the circular Gedan Barai there, bang, if you can punch, which you can't do in the grappling, of course, but that opens up there like that. Boom, look, he punches me. No, it's really hard, but I can punch him easily because I still have him on my center line. Okay, so that idea of that style of Gedan Barai is very practical as well. There, circular motion. Okay, for practical training purposes, to bring it within the realms of elbows together, there's your Gedan Barai across the body there. Across the body there. It also works well against wrist grabs, that sort of thing. When someone grabs your wrist like that, there's lots of easy ways to get out of it. Okay. When someone grabs you the way a wrestler will grab you, it's not so easy to get out of. It's surprisingly deceptive. Okay. That's where Gedan Barai comes in. He grabs your hand. I'm going to come up and I'm going to hit on the wrist there. In a self-defense situation, if he grabs you like that and wants to punch you with that hand, I can move away towards that side and then push it off like that in a Gedan Barai motion. One, there like that. Okay, so that's another practical use, is the wrist. That's why in karate we call grappling gyakute, or hand reversals. Okay, the last block, Uchi Uke Gedan Barai, we've covered all the key points to that in the previous two blocks. Elbows must come together. Most guys go like this. Okay, and the reason is, if you took a photo of me here and took a photo of me here, they both look correct. But what's happened is the key parts in the middle are missing. There. Okay, and when you're doing your basics, if you don't pick your students up, they'll be doing this till their fifth dance. Okay, the key is you must get the elbows together. 1, 2, 3. Now notice my hands aren't 90 degrees like an airplane helicopter or an airplane propeller. That's not what you're doing. You're actually coming from here. You're coming in. I used to say, rip the epaulets off your shoulders. Bang. They're out. Watch my hands. They're out. They come in and they switch. Out, come in, switch. It's slightly exaggerated, but that's the movement. There. Now, when I bring my elbows together, they fold in and then they push out. You must push out. There. See, elbows come together. Elbows come together. Elbows come together. Not out here. Okay, elbows come together. The reason the elbows come together, because when you use that style, I'm in this situation, they throw something, boom, my elbows come together. I don't know what he's going to throw, but as long as my elbows come together, in fact, we've done drills in the past where we put gloves on, where I close my eyes and I say, on the count, throw a punch. So I close my eyes, I go, itch. I don't know what's coming, but itch. As long as your elbows come there, it's a bit of a joke, right? But the reality is, if I go itch and I don't bring my elbows together, I'm not going to block anything. But if I go itch, bring my elbows together, you pick up anything. It's the idea of it. You go here, look, elbows come together and block. Elbows come together. By bringing my elbows together, I cover that center line at the head, center line at the chest, center line at the solar plexus, and center line at the groin. There, like that. So that's the last of the 4. Elbows together, out. Elbows together, out. From the side, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. Hands come in, hands go out. There, like that. Okay? So there you have it. They're the fundamental. So there you have it. They're the fundamental 4 Kihon blocks. 1, 2, 3, actually 5 with that one that we do in the Kihon. So if there is any takeaway from it, it's the shoulder rotation at the correct time and the elbows coming together is vital in all these. Uchi Uke, Jodan Uke, look. Jodan Uke, Uchi Uke, Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai, Gedan Barai. They're all very, very similar if you think about it. The setup motion has to be similar. Jodan Uke, look. There, you could even argue I'm dropping my elbow down. I know in reality we bring it to here. 1, 2, up. But that's also good. Uchi Uke, that's also good. Uchi Uke, there like that. Gedan Barai, there. Uchi Uke, Gedan Barai. The setup to that, the setup to that, the setup to that are all very similar. Okay, and that's really, really valuable to think about because you don't know what the opponent's going to do. So you have to be able to respond accordingly. And it's that initial explosive 1/10 of a second that you have to survive. If you can survive past that 1/10, 2/10 of a second, then you're miles ahead already. That's really, really valuable. So anyway, whoosh. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, look, it's always been my argument that there are always more similarities than differences. And the only reason we see differences between styles and even differences between martial arts is because somewhere someone has said, we'll do it like this and not like this. You know, so they're just a few very personal differences. Otherwise, it's the similarities that are important, I think. So there we go, guys. We'll wind it up at that. I hope you get something out of those, that idea. If you've got any questions, quickly. Yes, you're choosing our shape, how to receive before taking it away. Yeah, exactly. That's what a block is. Uke. That's really nicely put, Gaz. How to receive. Doya in Japanese, doya de ukeru. And doya de ukeru, how to receive, could also be translated how to block. Okay, so it's very interesting that you say that. And how you receive is how you respond. So if I'm here and I do the peekaboo and he grabs my wrist or tries to grab my leg, then I'm responding down. But if I block the punch coming up, then I'm going to block and move in. To me, it's always best to move in towards range 4, in other words, close range, than it is to move away. Okay, and the most successful street fighters, I think, have an ability to read very well and move inside the danger rather than keep moving away from the danger. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mitch.
Awesome.
Any questions? Any comments?
The only one was, and you went through all of them, was the elbows together. Since I started grappling a little bit more, I've recognised just how important the elbows are in. You talk about wiping the mud off your arms and ikate and all that. So anytime I do my blocks now, I know before I was doing, I wasn't as conscious about elbow position as I am now. I think it makes an enormous difference.
That's very true. And once again, as Sensei Mike was saying, he's surprised, although he shouldn't be, like he said, of the similarities. Well, you can even take that similarity not just between Goju and Kyokushin, but also between karate and grappling. You know, the whole idea of the elbow in makes such a big difference in grappling. And you go to any grappling school and they'll even get their elbows in. They'll close their armpit, like Salsa used to say, waki or shimeru, close your armpits. You'll go to a wrestling tournament in Japan. You'll go to a judo tournament in Japan. You'll go to a mixed martial arts event and you'll hear them saying, close the waki, close the waki. It's a universal principle, keeping the arms closed and the elbows in. And like they say, you've got to keep your elbows close to your body. Even, what's that joke? Keep your friends close, but your elbows closer. Keep your friends close, but your elbows closer. That's it. Well, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Sensei, once again. Oh, there you go. Miyazato Sensei, who's one of the great 10th Dan Okinawan Goju. Stress the elbows together.
Wow.
Look, you cannot overemphasize it. And I have to say, unfortunately, it's become quite common in Kyokushin because there are so many different groups and they're losing touch with this source. They're losing touch. Some of these groups have never had anyone in them who ever trained with Sosai, but they're calling themselves 10th Dans and 9th Dans and this sort of thing. It's a travesty. But how can they teach the original pure approach to training without, at least in Japanese, in Sanskrit, they call it parampara. Parampara is a word which means the unbroken disciplic succession. And of course, there's ways to abuse that. You could say, yeah, well, I trained with him. He was, the reality is you need an unbroken connection to the source. And the closer you can get to that connection, the better it is. And so I think it's very valuable to always see that there are more similarities than differences. And it's really important that we use key core fundamentals in the Kihon, regardless of which organization you belong to. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Good to see you. And look forward to seeing you next week. We'll continue on with some more Kihon techniques. Everyone. Thanks, Frederick, Paul, Sensei Mike, Gaza, everyone. Thank you very much.